Today we're going to kind of review the computation methods we have for solving a quadratic. The first one we're going to look at is completing the square, except this is a perfect square. When it says solve by taking the square root, that's kind of a hint to you that it is a perfect square, so you need to factor it. So square root of the first one, square root of the last one. What do you need to do? Multiply them together and double it. Yes, it works, so it would be this, equal 9. Now we have it as a perfect square. We're going to take the square root of each side. Gives me x plus 8 equals plus or minus 3. So I need to subtract 8 from each side. I get x equals negative 8 plus or minus 3. So I get x equal negative 8 plus 3 would be negative 5. Negative 8 minus 3 would be negative 11. So I get negative 5 and negative 11 for that one. Now I need to complete the square. So remember, the first thing is you do need to make sure the first term is coefficient of 1, which it is. Need to isolate the first two, so I'm going to subtract 30 from each side and get x squared minus 14x equals, a little space there for what I can add. If I subtract here, I'm going to get negative 24. So remember, the process is to take half of your b term, which in this case is negative 7, square it would be 49. So I want to add 49 to both sides. Again, this will factor into x minus 7, the quantity squared, equal, if I go ahead and do the math over here, I'm going to get 25. So now I'm ready to take the square root of each side and get x minus 7 equals plus or minus 5. So x equals, when I add 7 to each side, 7 plus or minus 5. So x equals 7 plus 5 would be 12, and 7 minus 5 would be 2. Again, coefficient is 1, so I'm going to subtract 10 from each side to isolate these two. So minus 8y equals negative 10. So what am I going to add to each side? Y squared minus 8y, so half of 8y would be negative 4, would be 16 when I square it, so I'm going to add 16 to both sides. Add 16 over there, I'm going to get a positive 6. So factor this into y minus 4, the quantity squared, equals 6. Now I'm going to take the square root of each side. I get y minus 4 equals plus or minus, and you take the square root of 6 and you're going to get 2.4. So I need to add 4 to each side. 4 plus or minus 2.4. So we get y equals 4 plus 2.4 would be 6.4, and 4 minus 2.4 would be 1.6. Now we're going to switch to talking about what's called the discriminant. And the expression under the radical is called this. So what is it under the radical? B squared minus 4ac. So what's a possibility for this? Well, it could be a negative number. If it's a negative number, we already talked about this, you can't take the square root of negative numbers, so there is no solution. What if it's 0? Well, the square root of 0 is just 0. In that case, you'll have one solution. And if it's positive, you will have two solutions. So a number 4 all at once doesn't want the final answer, it just wants to know what the discriminant is, the value of the discriminant, which is before you even take the square root. So what is the number there, and then the number of solutions. I'm still going to write it underneath the square root, even though we're not going to take the square root. So remember, it's b squared, which in this case is 10 squared, minus 4 times 2 times 11. So 10 squared is 100, minus, if I do all this, I'm going to get 88, which is 12. So how many solutions would I have? 2 solutions. So my two answers here, state the value of the discriminant, 12, and how many solutions? 2 solutions. So that would be the answer to that question there. So make sure you actually find and simplify underneath there. Alright, and now we're just going to use the quadratic formula to solve. So it is set equal to 0, so it's ready to go. So negative b, which in this case is 5, just need my parentheses, plus or minus the square root of 5 squared minus 4 times a, which is 2, times c, which is negative 8. Again, don't forget your bottom, all over 2 times a, which in this case is 2. So we get 25, negative times negative is going to be plus 64, which gives me 89 underneath the radical. Take the square root of 89, that is 9.4. So So I get negative 5 plus or minus 9.4 all over 4. So negative 5 plus 9.4 would be 4.4 all over 4, which gives me 1.1. Negative 9 minus 9.4 would be negative 14.4 all over 4, which would give me negative 3.6. So those would be my two answers.